Hello, my name is Natasha Musto, and I'm here today to give you a 5-minute introductory lesson to approaching literary devices. I am an admissions consultant here at The Edge, and I also tutor various subjects up to IB and AP, such as English, history, philosophy, and psychology. This presentation today is useful for anybody studying English, but in particular it is focused towards people taking IB English Literature and Language, papers 1 and 2. The literary devices are equally important for papers 1 and 2. You have to do them unseen, of course, in the exam for paper 1, but in approaching and preparing for paper 2, these will also be really important. The common thing students tell me is that they can find the devices within the text, they've learned them in class, but they cannot take it to the next step. They cannot decide what the actual effect is of this device. So the first step is always to identify what the subject of the device is. Finding the subject, which is the person or the object which is being changed by the literary device, is really important because this is what will help you to uncover the meaning of the device and why the author is using it. After you've identified the subject, the next thing to do is to find out which words make up the literary device itself. This, of course, is essential because it will help you decide what type of literary device it is and also which words to quote when you're discussing it in your essay. The third thing to do is to identify how the literary effect changes our perception of the subject that you've identified. So how does the application of, for example, sibilance to a person change the way that we perceive him as the reader? Literary devices can, of course, have many effects and change the way that we see the object or the person that it's acting on in many ways. And so when we're looking at effects, we're always trying to discuss the following things. Does it affect the status of the thing being discussed? Does it make it more important, less important, more dangerous? Does the use of the device affect the emotional feelings of the reader? Do we suddenly associate certain emotions with the image or the person being discussed? Or alternatively, does it portray the emotions of these objects? Another thing that literary devices can do is emphasize. They can draw your attention to something, draw your attention to a small detail of the text or to the way that a character is feeling within the text. So sometimes if you have a device where it's difficult to identify the purpose, its only purpose is to draw your attention to something as the reader and therefore to communicate the message that the author has. The fourth thing to do is to explain how the device and its effects link to the themes of the text. That, of course, is text specific, and it's not something we're going to spend a lot of time discussing today, because this is something that for paper 2 you will have prepared in advance, linking your memorized devices to themes that you wish to discuss. Or for paper 1, it's part of how you will structure your paper, structure your response essay to the unseen text. And that is something that I will discuss in another 5-minute presentation. So today we are just going to focus on types of devices and how you can identify their subjects and their effects. For each new device, I'm going to give you some examples. I would like you to pause this page when I introduce a new device, such as simile here, and read the examples that I've given you. Try to identify, for practice, which part is the device itself and which part is the subject. What object within the text is being changed or which person within the text is being changed by the introduction of the device itself. So please pause now and read these examples. Similes are devices which compare something to something else. You can usually spot them because they always include either as or like in order to create the comparison. For the first one, she was as strong as an ox as she bore his body on her back. Here, you should be able to identify that the subject is she. She is the person being changed by the device, as strong as an ox. In the comparison of the woman to the ox, she is depersonified, made to sound more like an animal. Here, that is actually increasing her status. It is making her sound more powerful, more dangerous, more capable of performing this task. It might also suggest some other depersonifying qualities, such as her being focused on the work, her being committed to it and able to perform it. So in human strength, raising her status and power are the effects of this literary device here. In the second device, her words were gentle, like the lapping of water upon the shore. The subject, which I hope you identified, was her words, the words themselves, and they are presented like the lapping of water upon the shore. That part is the simile. So how does this change the perception of her words? Usually, we might have quite a neutral perception of the way somebody speaks. However, the introduction of this image, the words lapping like water upon the shore, creates a sense of peacefulness. It makes the words sound soothing and gentle, like a pleasurable experience. And so this changes the image of words from a neutral image to a much more relaxing, soothing, surreal type of image. His touch was like poison. Hopefully you identified that his touch is the subject of this device. A touch could be a positive or a negative thing, of course. It could be comforting or it could be unwanted and violating. And here we have the image of it being like poison. So this suggests something insidious. It makes it sound dangerous, deceptive. And of course, a touch could be a gentle, neutral sort of thing. So here its status is being changed. Status is really important to look at. It often indicates what the author's priorities are. And it can show, for example, here, that somebody is experiencing something extreme, even within a small act in the text. Let's go on to talk about metaphor. Again, please pause this page and identify which words comprise the device and which words are being acted upon. Where is the subject of this device in each sentence? So a metaphor is any time that somebody says something happens which actually does not happen. It is not a literal description, it is a metaphorical description. So for example, the anger burned in his chest. It didn't actually burn in his chest. This is a metaphor. So within this first sentence, anger, of course, is the subject. This is what is being changed, our perception of the anger. We are perceiving his anger now as more dramatic, more powerful. It's burning in his chest like a living force. So it's emphasizing the status, it's making us aware of how dangerous, how dramatic this anger is, and how seriously he's experiencing it. In the second example, her words slapped me brutally as I listened, distraught. Her words are what is being changed by this device. So the image of the words slapping me brutally as I listened brings the words to life. It's a type of personification and it's suggesting their power. It's raising their status. It's showing that they are dangerous and powerful and dramatic. It really stresses the physical impact of the words and therefore the emotional impact of the words upon the listener. For the third example, part of me had died with him. So we have a narrator who is identifying part of themselves as dead. Of course, this is metaphorical and not literal, which is how you identify the device. And the image of part of someone having died stresses the strength and the power of their feeling. It increases the status of what they experienced, the seriousness of what they experienced. And it also perhaps demonstrates a sense of numbness, a sense of total grief and a loss of your own ability to live in response to someone else's death, the him here in the sentence. In the fourth example, the little girl exploded with rage. We have a subject which is usually considered to be low status, the little girl, changed into a powerful creature exploding with rage. The image of her exploding is, of course, metaphorical, not literal. And the associations that we have with the image of an explosion is high status, high power, strength, and also just a dramatic impact upon the environment. So this might be emphasizing how serious her emotion is or how overwhelming it is for her. And it's demonstrating the drama and importance of her experience. Thank you for joining me to discuss literary devices. I hope you can see that when you approach literary devices, the important thing to do is identify how it changes our perception of a subject. Does it make it more positive, more negative? Does it add emotion, take away emotion, or perhaps change the status of what we're looking at? And then the next step is to think, how does this link to the themes that I'm arguing that my author presents? Do look out for part 2 of Approaching Literary Devices, which will be coming soon. And I hope to see you at the Edge. My name has been Natasha Musto. It's been lovely speaking to you.